Hello and welcome again to the Amateur Runner. In today's video I'm going to just walk through some of the menus to show you which of these three brands, the Coros, the Suunto and Garmin, have the simplest menus, which usually mean they have less features, up to the most complex menus and complex settings, which usually means you have much more features in the watch. I'm not going to compare the physical capabilities of these watches. Here the Nomad is the only one with the MIP screen. The other two have AMOLED screens. I'm going to start with the most feature that you interact with, which is usually the watch face. Okay, so here on the Nomad you cannot change complications. You can change watch faces, install new ones, and if you press on the complication itself, it does nothing. You can move through different complications by pressing the back button. However, it only goes through the predefined complications on the watch face. The Suunto, if you notice, the always on screen is, let's put it that way, one with the least information out of the three. Of course, the MIP screen, it doesn't switch off, but you always see on the Garmin that the always on screen is different. Once you switch on the main display, okay, you can see that you can change multiple of these complications, and if you click on them or press on them, in some watch faces it will take you to the particular app or to the particular widget. On other watch faces sometimes it does not function as it should. Again, you can change the complications. It depends on the watch face that you're going to choose from the watch itself. Now on Garmin, okay, you can see that, let me just, okay, the always on display, it gives much more information. Of course, this always depends on the settings you choose, and once you're interacting with the watch, if you press on the particular complication, you can go in that particular widget. These complications, most of them, you can change them. You can change them from the watch itself. So if you here go, for example, into this one, you can go watch face, you edit, and you can change all data, accent color, data color, or completely delete the watch face. On the other hand, if I go on the Suunto, okay, you can go customize. You can change the accent color. It depends on the watch face you choose. It might change or not. And you can change the complications, and in this case you can change these four, and you'll have a set of predefined complications that you can choose from. Of course, this depends on the watch face that you have enabled. Now I'm going to go through the widget menu. All three watches support widgets. Okay, I think the Garmin out of them all has the most widgets, followed by Coros. And of course, most of these widgets you can remove, and you can add others. Okay, of course, these are all from the predefined ones. The way they show it, the way they are displayed, they are very, very similar. What you notice is that the Coros has the most kind of old-fashioned widget style. This is the one of Suunto. Of course, you can click on most of the widgets and you can get more information. And on the Garmin as well, you can get most of the widgets. In my case, I have folders, which then they have more widgets. So from data perspective and widget perspective, I would think that Garmin has the most amount of widgets and data, if that kind of concerns you or it makes a difference to you. The next thing is the control center. No, the Coros have the control center here, or glances in Garmin. It depends what kind of the name is, and it has a control panel as well on Suunto. Here you can choose much more settings and much more options. Okay. Suunto doesn't have this kind of control center. It just has the control panel here, which has multiple predefined options, and you cannot change any of these. Garmin as well has multiple settings. These are all customizable, both on the Garmin and on the Coros. Garmin as well have a notification panel. It has a recent menu as well. Okay, which kind of shows the recent interaction, which then can go more, and you can find more here. So it has much more menus compared to the other two brands. Now I'm going to go into the settings page. So let's start with the Suunto. You can access the settings by a specific shortcut. If you're going to see now, the Suunto has the most kind of basic settings. So you have general, which usually you can change the display, time, date, language, enable whether you want it always on or off. You get the customize option, alarm, clocks, connectivity, ultimate barometer, navigation, activity, training, sleep, and notifications. That would be it in the case of Suunto. Nomad as well has a pretty basic menu, settings menu. Go on systems, you can see you have first the most kind of common system settings that people interact with, which is activity, interface, pair phone, sensors, accessories, Wi-Fi. And then you can go into more settings like touchscreen, sound, vibration, digital dial, wrist, gesture, watch faces, language, and device information. On the other hand, the one that has the most elaborate settings menu is the Garmin. So first you're going to go into the most used one, which is watch face, clocks, and history. But then once you go into the what settings, you can find more. It's nice that they kind of group them into much kind of smaller activities or settings, and you can then go and dig deep into each and every one of these settings. Next menu I'm going to show you is the sport menu. So okay, once Suunto you can choose the sport. You present it with an option of the type of sport, navigation, Suunto Plus, which are like applications that you can add to your particular run. In the case of the vertical 2, you can enable 3. In the older models, you can enable only 2. And you have some settings specifically for the exercise options. Suunto, compared to for example, the Coros Nomad, it can give you the opportunity to particularly set some settings for the exercise only, which can include the display if you want always on, and it will only affect the activity. If you want heart rate monitor, etc., if sensor belt, climb guidance, etc. So these are specifically for the activity. I wish that the Coros could have those options, especially when it comes to activities, that you can enable certain settings just for activities. So far, for example, the backlight, I would want, for example, the auto gesture to be on for activities only. If it's touchscreen, I would be happy that I can have the touchscreen on for the generic use, but then it automatically disables for the activity. Something that so far, unfortunately, Coros did not implement. Again, the menu is very basic. You choose this type of sport and then you can choose this settings, etc. Of course, the most granular settings are found in this case, I believe, in Garmin. It gives you a lot of control on the settings during your run, etc. So you can get to the training, navigation, run settings. You can choose the gear beforehand, and in each of the settings then you can choose particular settings related to that particular sport profile, and as well you can choose certain settings which then are enabled or disabled in particular focus modes. It gives you a little bit more control compared to Suunto and the Coros. However, for the sport settings menu, I would then say that the Suunto is second best after Garmin. Of course, if a lot of settings and a lot of menus confuse you, then most likely Coros and Suunto will kind of be the better options. Again, I'm not going to say which one is the best because it boils down to budget, it boils down to taste. However, they tend to do things in a different way. If you want more control of each and every setting, then Garmin, I think, takes the crown. Coros, I would say it would be second best for features vis-a-vis price, and then Suunto for the kind of simplest interface of the three. However, again, if you get the simplest interface, then you might lose certain features. I'm not going to talk about music and payments because those are only available, especially if Spotify, etc., towards Garmin. However, even if you go, for example, in some simple setting, let's say to connect an accessory, if you see in the case of Coros, you can just add Bluetooth and it will search for devices. In the case of Suunto, okay, you can just pair a new device, and again, it just chooses pair sensor. If we do the same with Garmin, and this I'm showing it to see the amount of control and how much deeper settings Garmin has compared to the other one. You can choose sensor, and if you click add new, it's going to open more menus such as e-bike, extended display, extended HR, footboard, club sensor, rangefinder, headphones, in-reach, lights, power, radar, air depot, shifting, Shimano Di2. Again, these I've never used, so I don't know whether they work properly on the other ones or not. I don't cycle. Okay, temperature sensors, trolling motor, chronograph, and dog tracking. Okay, so this to give you an idea of what I mean by granular settings in the case of Garmin. Again, it boils down to taste. Honestly, at the moment I'm enjoying the Phoenix 8. I love the simplicity of the Suunto as well, and the battery life in this case. However, when I really want to customize each and every setting, then I would think that Garmin takes the crown. Again, as I said, it's not a video showing which one is the best. It's to give you an idea if you want the simpler one or the more sophisticated one, to have a clue of what the settings might be. There will be a learning curve, definitely, if you're moving from one brand to the other. However, it's not something that it's not something bad. You will get used to it as well. Of course, they might do some things differently, but overall, they do serve the same purpose. So if you want a sports watch, they all do that kind of job. If you want more smartwatch features, then Garmin, followed by the rest. That was it for today. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.